Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi everyone. You may have noticed, everybody, just as you're coming in, we are recording. So for those that perhaps couldn't tune in online, then we will be sending this out to everybody. There were heaps of you that registered. So this is obviously a topic that resonates a lot with celebrants all across the country and beyond.
Absolutely. Nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. We still have some people coming in. But we will get underway.
Lovely. Well, let us officially welcome you all to the Storyteller's Toolkit. This is essential skills every celebrant needs to know. This particular webinar essentially complements the Storyteller Summit, which we're hosting in Sydney in February next year. And it comes from a place where a lot of celebrants have reached out to us, both funeral and marriage celebrants, asking either personally or us as a group about how we manage to engage the way that we do using storytelling as a tool, using improvisation as a tool. So we've created the event next year to assist with that and really give some hands-on training in how you can implement some of the incredible storytelling and improv techniques that exist. But today is about focusing on the Storyteller's Toolkit. So we're going to cover quite a lot of content. It's pretty content heavy. And if we do run out of time,
Oh,
hello, did I just get muted?
I did.
Yes.
Sorry, I muted all.
Yaz just has a tendency to mute me
Sorry,
when I waffle on. That's okay. It's a
I went rogue.
so we are going to just go and introduce ourselves first. So who are we? I'm Oliver. I'm based in Sydney. I'm on Gadigal land, and I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am calling from and where you may be tuning in from as well, all across country. I am a co-creator of the Funeral Fix, which I'm assuming if you're here, you've probably heard of. You may even be a student of ours or a graduate of ours. You may have attended one of our in-person events as well, or even listened to our podcast. So if you have, we are forever grateful. That is amazing to see so much support and community in this space. I'm a funeral celebrant, a funeral director, and a marriage celebrant with a background in performing arts. So I had a long time in musical theatre. I think there's even a commercial of me at the moment, which you may have seen me pop up on your screens recently. And this is Yaz.
Hi everyone, I am the other creator of the Funeral Fix with Oliver. It's so good to be with you today. I am the owner of Rite of Passage Funerals. I'm based up on the Gold Coast and I'm a funeral planner and celebrant and have been for the past 8 years. Prior to that, I was in media and had regular or weekly TV segment and worked across many different forms of media from print, radio, and online as well. So I also have a background in marketing. So it's so exciting to be with you and our special guest, Adam, who's here with us.
Hi,
Hi,
Hi.
Adam.
I'm Adam. I'm not a co-creator of the Funeral Fix and the Ring In. I did take part in the Funeral Fix in-person event in Melbourne a couple of years ago, though. So I've been a celebrant since 2017. Before that, like Ollie, have a background in performing arts, musical theatre, tragic. I was a drama teacher for a period of time. And what I'll sort of be bringing is the improv elements to talking about storytelling. So I've got a background in improv, studied improv, taught everyone from kids to uni age students improv and performed all across Australia doing improv. And now I sort of bring that as a part of my ceremonies. I'm predominantly a wedding celebrant, but as I said, after the in-person Funeral Fix event, I've been getting into funerals as well. So I'm really keen to get into the improv side of things and how we can make stuff up on the spot to improve our ceremonies and make them more fun and exciting, not just for guests and for everyone who's there, but also just for us to make things interesting and fun. That's me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. So we have a lot of content to get through today. I'm going to preface this by letting everyone know our goal for today was really to all of you, whether you're watching the recording or showing up here live, that with lots of tools and techniques so that you can walk away having learned a lot already in this. We are hoping to get through it all, but obviously this is just a taster for what's to come at the Storytellers Summit. But really it's about that element of storytelling and how as funeral celebrants can we really use this art of storytelling and enhance that and take it in new directions so that our ceremonies can go from good to really, really great. And a lot of that boils down to the power of storytelling in ceremonies. So, why does storytelling even matter? As a funeral celebrant or a celebrant of any description, why does storytelling matter? Well, really, I think it's about breaking down what a good ceremony with strong story comes to and what a ceremony without strong story comes to. Obviously, as funeral celebrants, we're there to share someone's legacy and their story and really weave that into the ceremony that we're creating. So ceremonies with strong stories, they create a deeper emotional connection with the audience. And I feel like for me, that's one of the key things I do as a celebrant is I really want to connect with the audience and connect the audience together because they're all there for a common purpose. Ceremonies with strong stories also engage guests through relatable and compelling narratives. They enhance memorability, leaving a lasting impression on attendees. And as you know, if you've ever been to a funeral service where it really lacked that and people kind of walk away feeling a little bit empty and a little bit lost, they're not memorable or they're memorable for all the wrong reasons, which we do not want at all as celebrants. They provide a sense of meaning and context, and it really makes the event feel significant. And I think it's safe to say that as a funeral celebrant, it is a hugely significant ceremony that we are pulling together for that family. And so to give them that sense of gravitas is something really beautiful and really, really powerful. And strong stories also foster inclusivity, allowing guests to feel part of that narrative and again, bring them all together, which feeds into that point of connection as well. On the flip side of that, ceremonies without strong stories, they might feel generic or impersonal and lacking emotional depth. And I think that that's something that you can really tell the difference when a celebrant has really put time and effort into that storytelling ability. It feels very different to like a more generic style of service. You also risk losing the audience, their engagement and their attention if you haven't got that element of storytelling. These like ceremonies without strong stories can often result in guests forgetting key moments. It's losing that sense of memorability. It can lead to a lack of connection between the celebrant and the audience and may also leave attendees with the sense of formality rather than that real emotional resonance. So this is where that piece with Adam talking about improv really comes in as well, because being able to connect and maybe not say so structured in your ceremony, but really harnessing on that connection can create something really special. So when we're looking at storytelling in ceremony, there's also, of course, psychological and emotional impact and what that does for the audience, which I think is really important. And having a well-told story, it creates empathy and understanding. Again, this is something so important for us to consider as celebrants. How are we creating empathy and understanding and connecting the people in front of us and everyone in the room? It also enhances emotional engagement. It promotes moments of reflection and meaning, reduces anxiety and increases comfort, which again, as the celebrant, an analogy Ollie and I often use is we are like the flight attendants. People are looking to us to be like, okay, do I feel safe here? Has this person got this ceremony under control? And creating
And where's my drink? No.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And as we know, we've all been there where sometimes, people arrive at the ceremony and they are anxious, they are nervous, they don't know what to expect. So, boys, I'm sure Ollie, Adam, you guys have had, times where you've had to put the crowd at ease a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, I've had time where I've experienced turbulence on an airplane, and the first thing I do is I look at the flight attendant's face. And does everybody do that? And I'm like, well, if they're
No,
not
I always do
stressed,
that.
if they're not stressed, I shouldn't be stressed, right? Let's go back to doing whatever I was doing. But it's the same analogy, like you said, Yaz, that I think when we arrive at a ceremony location, wherever that may be and whatever the occasion might be for, as the lead in that particular role in that moment, people just subconsciously, it's just what we do as humans, is we look to that person for guidance on how we should be feeling. And often, if the celebrant is relaxed and shows confidence and competence, even just having a relaxed disposition, a smile, um, chatting with the family and sort of just being really warm and friendly, just that in itself, you can see how that can affect the group of people there. They're like, oh, well, if he's not stressed, then I don't know why I should be stressed. Aside from what their personal emotions and feelings would be, that's kind of a different thing. This is more about how do I feel in this environment? Like you said, am I safe? Am I protected? And can I build a rapport and trust this person that's leading me in this moment?
Yeah.
And that, sorry, that sort of like lends itself into the improv side of things, like beginning of a ceremony or when you're conducting any sort of presentation. If you show confidence and you exert that confidence, everyone's going to feel, oh, they trust and respect that you've got them in good hands and they're going to trust that you're going to guide them along this journey. And the same sort of goes for in the middle of ceremony, which is kind of where the improv side comes in, when something unexpected happens or someone speaks that you didn't expect or whatever, being confident and managing that moment, even if you don't feel completely confident, if you still exert that energy, then people will feel like, oh, then everything is okay. And it's like, I'll take the time. And I'm going to go into that a little bit later. Sorry to interject.
And more often than not, in our role as celebrants, though we might work really closely with the family or even the couple if it's a wedding, perhaps, we kind of get a bit of an idea on how they might be. But the actuality on the day, the group of people, the way that the family are, the way that the group of guests react and respond is often very different to what you might not have necessarily expected. So that first piece of music might be really intense, or it could have a completely different effect than what you anticipated. So you're right, Adam, that at the beginning, specifically being really open to kind of showing that you are there with them in that moment can have such a powerful impact by just showing, hey, I'm here with you. I'm not just going to read what I've had prepared 48 hours ago, whatever it may be. I'm actually saying, yeah, that song was heavy. This moment is heavy. Or what a hilarious song to pick. This guy was obviously hilarious. Whatever it may be, it just shows that you're connected to what they're feeling and what you're experiencing and what they're experiencing instead of just going back to hi, my name is this and we're here to do this today. There's a real difference in that sort of approach, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and quite often if there is that moment and everyone's, and I'm going to be talking about tension a little bit later, like feeling, oh, that was so much, or for a wedding, say, if the emotional moment where someone walks in and people are crying, the first thing you often say is go, just pointing out what happened in the moment. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that was a lot. And then everyone
Yeah.
might go, oh, and laugh or like just release that as well. It's like just by saying what's happening in the moment and how you're feeling gives people so much in that moment just to be like, oh, I was feeling that way too. Oh, that's okay. We're all
Yeah.
feeling weird or yeah.
So true. And adds to the final point on this slide, which is it facilitates memory retention, which again, we all want that as celebrants. We really want our ceremonies to be memorable for ourselves and our own brand. So that obviously helps us get new jobs, for everyone who is in attendance, and also for the funeral home. Like as a celebrant, you are representing them. And if they can have these amazing ceremonies, that reflects really well on them, and in turn will get you more business as well. So it's really important to kind of have that back of mind, obviously, that creating memorable ceremonies is so important.
So now we're going to talk about some key skills and techniques. And in particular, we're going to talk about the 3-act structure. So you may have heard of this 3-act structure in terms of story composition, the 3 acts being the beginning, the middle, and the end. You might know this, but it's a well-renowned or widely recognized framework for storytelling and writing. It's used in so many different capacities: media, literature, film, theatre, public speaking, and obviously ceremony as well. And it actually has really interesting roots for those that might have studied this or learn about this at some point. But it was articulated initially by Aristotle in his work, Poetics, where he discussed the importance of structure in narratives or storytelling. And obviously, since then, it's been expanded upon and modernized and made more relevant, perhaps. So let's go. So with the beginning, Act 1, essentially, is where we introduce characters and set the scene. It also is an opportunity to provide the hook to really connect and engage and pique your audience's interest. And it sets up the story arc as well. So it presents the main theme, the emotional journey that might unfold throughout that story, and gives a glimpse as well, or a bit of an insight into what is about to come. Act 2, being the middle, is about developing the conflict or the journey. I say conflict, but it's essentially the journey or what's happening in the middle. So it essentially explores the central themes of the story, some of the challenges, and those real key pivotal moments in the lives of individuals that we might be honoring at a funeral, or perhaps even the couples of weddings, if we're talking about weddings. It also helps us to build emotional tension. So similar to what Yaz had mentioned as well, it also creates a sense of anticipation with the emotional tension, allows the audience to invest emotionally in the journey that's being shared or the story that's being told. Act 3 is called the end, and that's the resolution and reflection. It's concluding the story by resolving the central theme or conflict that we talked about, and allows the audience to then reflect on the significance of that. The end is about delivering a powerful closing statement and perhaps even a call to action. So in a ceremony such as a funeral or end of life ceremony, perhaps it could be about encouraging guests to take away a message or an emotion or something that they could do in their lives from that moment on. For example, continue the legacy of this person in all of your interactions amongst this group or in your memories or whatever it may be. So that's kind of the framework of the 3-act structure.
I think
Adam?
we can get on to
Sorry,
this.
yes.
I just wanted to add as well, like, I think it's important for us as celebrants to, like, this is a whole new way for us to possibly start approaching our ceremonies and really considering it from this 3-act structure and how we can use the key points of someone's journey. Like, you know, once you've interviewed the family and you've spoken to them and you've found those little nuggets of gold, weaving all of that into this beautiful story with a beginning, a middle, and an end will take the audience. We talk about this a lot in the Funeral Fix online course. It's like the audience journey. Like, where are you taking the audience? And I think that this is a really tangible way for us to kind of look at how we're writing our ceremonies and is there a resolution? Are we building tension? What are the things that we can do to elevate our stories even more? So
yeah, that's a good point, Yaz, that it's not just about necessarily the story component within the ceremony, that the ceremony itself is essentially the story if we consider it in this framework. For example, the beginning might be our introduction or the words said earlier on. The middle might be the heart, more of the personal anecdotes, stories of memories and things like that. And then the end being that closing committal, perhaps. But yeah, that call to action as well.
yeah.
Adam, using tension and release for emotional moments.
Tension and release. So I sort of want to, yeah, what is tension and release, but also how does this work in terms of a improv and some acting techniques that also can lend itself to this as well. So tension refers to building anticipation, emotional intensity, or uncertainty in a story. And that's the really fun part, is the release. So we take them on this journey, whether it be of the whole ceremony or of the story we're telling about the deceased or of a couple in a wedding setting, and then we build it all up and knock it all down. So the release can come in the form of something cathartic, something sad, something emotional, or something funny as well. Like I said before, it was like if something happens and you just say what happened, that is a release moment. And it's letting people know how to feel and, yeah, giving them a sense of closure and relief in that moment. So, and really emphasize a little bit of connection as well. So tension release, it sort of mirrors the natural ups and downs of life, of relationships. So just sort of talking frankly and being yourself in that moment is a form of tension release as well. So I think that's really. Can I actually, and I just want to go back because I was thinking as you were speaking, Ollie, as well. I had a memorial not too long ago, and in terms of beginning, middle, end, and tension release. So the deceased was in China when he passed away, and the last week of his life was a little bit unknown. No one actually knew how sick he was. He hid that from friends and family. He was very, very ill. So I got in contact with his wife who lived in China, and she actually sent me all these beautiful messages talking about his last week, the things that he did, how he was feeling, all of these moments. And I got to share that with all of the guests there, and they were all finding this out at the moment. And there was a lot of tension. Everyone was like, whoa, didn't know these things. This is how ill he was. She was sort of sharing that. And then the release was his final words were talking about how he just wants people to live their lives in his legacy, just have fun with life, be silly, be dumb, do whatever. Like the message was very beautiful of just be yourselves. And he didn't ever want to make everyone feel upset for him. And that was the release of people like, oh my goodness, that was all this information that they didn't know in the space of 3 or 4 minutes and just have fun with life. And that was like, yeah, the best release moment I think I've felt. And you could also feel it in the whole energy of the group go, oh, okay, bit lighter.
Is that a memorial you were leading as the celebrant?
Yeah.
So how did you incorporate some of that into the ceremony?
So I asked for permission from his widow to read some of her messages verbatim. And she said that was fine. So, and she wrote beautifully. She basically was just saying, they had spent time walking lots, just being outside in sunshine, all of this sort of stuff. But then she was also sharing how hard it was and the struggle that he was having as well. And that was, yeah, I think a lot for people to handle as well, not knowing how ill he was at the end. But yeah, lovely. So how to build tension using silence and pauses. So I think also just being really confident in how you speak. So if people are trusting you, if they have the respect for you, people make their opinions up subconsciously within a presenter or a speaker within the first, I think it's 7 seconds of starting.
I think it's even less, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like a subconscious thing. So as soon as you see someone, as soon as you see their demeanor, how they're presenting, their body language, you immediately make up your mind of how you feel about that person. So once you have them along for that ride, once you have that confidence and respect and trust, using some of these are really, really great ways to build some tension. So using silence, I think, is so important. If people are hanging off every word, you can slow things down, really consider your pace and your timing. People will start hanging off every word, and it can sort of lend itself to those slower, potentially more beautiful moments, the sadder moments as well. And the same goes for if you're going to be speeding it up as well, might be going for the more elated moments, the more excited moments, the more celebratory moments. You might get faster and your pitch and tempo might change as well. So there's really fun ways to sort of just play with how people are feeling through your voice as well.
And can we do a little? Sorry,
I was going to say at the Storyteller Summit, it's the format of that in-person event is very much workshop style. So there's going to be lots of really awesome opportunities to be playing with all of this stuff so that we can all explore our new edges of things that we may not have been able to tap into before and stuff like, voice and how we move our body and how we, go off script and all of those fun things. So I'm excited about that.
And one of the biggest improv techniques to going off script is something called yes and, which we spoke about on your podcast episode that I came on. And it's just, I'm going to go through, it's one of the cornerstones of improv is yes and, which means yes, we're accepting the idea that's happened. So say during a ceremony, a bird comes by or a dog barks or one of the guests says something back to you. Yes, we all heard and saw that. And then and is furthering the idea. So it's just saying the first thing that comes to your head. And usually, always, actually, I should say, not usually, always the first thing that comes to your head is the right thing. So
I have a really good
yes,
example of that. I had a
yeah,
service yesterday, a memorial service, and there were probably about 150 people there. And his best mate got up and started telling a story about how he dropped LSD and was playing football and was seeing four balls. It was like this really out there story. And I could tell I was kind of looking around the room, and half the room were laughing and thought it was amazing. And the other half of the room were like quite shocked. His grandkids were there. Like it was quite, it was a pretty, punchy story to be sharing. And when he'd finished, I like made a quip about, because after him, the floor was being opened to anyone else who wanted to come and speak. And his family thought that lots of people would come up and speak. So firstly, I just acknowledged, I was like, yes, and that was out their story. This is now your opportunity to, it's going to be a hard one to beat, but perhaps you have something else, or maybe something a little bit more PG, or maybe not, because this is your day to share your stories. The thing is, though, then no one came up, like no one was coming. So then there was this other moment, and I could see people in the room kind of, feeling like, oh, this is a bit awkward. No one's now coming up to the open floor. But again, I just stayed super calm, and I acknowledged the fact. I was like, we get it. It can be really daunting to come up and speak in front of 150, 200 people. There'll be plenty of opportunity after the service to share more stories if you feel more confident then. I'm going to give anyone like a couple more seconds to come up, but if not, it's totally fine. And just stayed calm, and I could feel that tension in the room. Everyone was like, okay, maybe this isn't so awkward after all, because even his children were like, why isn't, and some of his mates were like, come on, like someone get up, and no one was getting up. So it was definitely like be in the moment type of situation. But I think when we have the, like, I guess, confidence in ourselves to be like, no, I got this is fine, the audience definitely react in a positive way, and it was beautiful. The whole thing was great.
and also just like a side point on that, Yaz, the fact that in terms of confidence in ceremony and being confident to go off script as well, the fact that you as the presenter, as the celebrant, is standing up there speaking, telling a story to a group of people, whether it be 10 or 150, to 99% of the people there, that is a feat. Just the fact that you are there public speaking, because that's most people's fear, as you just sort of alluded to. So it's like you get so much from people, trust from people just from speaking. So just like be confident in your ability in that, and then add to that toolkit of what can I do to further enrich my public speaking skills, because people are afraid.
Absolutely. Good stories, good example.
So where were we at? Layering personal details, gradually revealing meaningful details about the individuals involved, increasing emotional investment in the outcome. And pacing and timing, we've sort of gone through as well. And I think that we'll do some vocal techniques at the Storyteller Summit as well. I think emphasis is one as well. Sometimes even when I'm writing a story or a ceremony, sometimes I'll put in bold a word that I want to emphasize, because that's the crux of that part of the story or that sentence. That's the bit that I want to get across. And just to remind yourself, it's like, I need to emphasize that bit, because that's the bit that I want my people to connect with. I think that's like a really nice little technique as well. I want to go through that. I'm too excited. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's okay.
So crafting release, delivering emotional climax. That release should bring a moment of resolution, whether it's joy, relief, or sadness, by concluding the emotional arc you've built. So yeah, it can come in the form of anything. And in terms of speaking about the unexpected as well, I call those moments gifts. So a gift is something that happens during the ceremony that nobody expected. But to me, instead of it being a problem, it's something that I can use to deliver an emotional climax. So, Yaz, in your moment of what you said before, maybe having the discussions amongst yourselves was something that the guests could do after to deliver something for themselves. It's like, okay, we're not comfortable or speaking in front of this group, but maybe we can take those stories that you might be thinking of and split off, and at the wait you can have that chat and go through those little beautiful stories just on people that you're comfortable with. So there's little bits like that. That's your gift that you can give people. And a gift can also be a funny moment in breaking the tension, especially in a funeral. Oh, people are feeling so much and they're looking at you to guide them. So it's like a bird poos. And you could say that that's some sort of strange, that's Bill giving us a moment that we can all laugh or whatever, however you use that. Or just bring it on yourself as well. Oh, you missed, try again. And then just keep going. Just that
I
moment.
love humor in ceremony because I feel like
So
there's
much.
this real it's almost like it's not meant to be there. Like people think that funeral ceremonies have to be so serious. And so I really like the contradiction or the juxtaposition around like using appropriate humor in ceremony because I just feel again it just really connects everyone, but it also just eases that tension so beautifully.
I also always ask people or invite people at the beginning of a ceremony, feel free to feel what you're going to feel. If you feel like you want to laugh, that's okay because that's how we're feeling. If you want to cry, that's okay as well. But just being open to guests to be like, and if you want to say something as well, do that if you're comfortable accepting that as well. Just feel what you're going to feel because that's fine. And if you allow people in those ways and give them a bit of laughter, I think then they'll actually probably feel more satisfied as well.
Yeah.
Adam, do you want to talk about creating release?
I do. Sorry, did I not reading your actual slides and just talking? So delivering an emotional climax.
I'm just the time guy.
I know you move on, Adam. We talked about delivering emotional climax, shift tone and energy. So after a moment of high tension, you could use a lighter tone, some humor, accompanying resolution to help the audience breathe and feel emotionally satisfied, and maybe sit in silence as well as a really nice moment in there you could use as well. Or share an uplifting reflection or message after an intense moment, offering a positive or reflective takeaway gives the audience a sense of closure and purpose. And I think Ollie, you sort of touched on that earlier as well. The people, some sort of closure, the end to that part as well. I think there's beginning, middle, ends, and everything, isn't there?
I think we've sort of covered why it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to get through today, everyone. So we are moving fast, but there will be a recording. So if you need to go back and watch it, you can
pause.
get as much info out to you as possible.
I think we might actually skip these examples if that's all right, but perhaps we can create the slideshow as a PDF, Yaz, and send it out to everybody.
Yeah,
to
that's a
look
great
at after.
Yeah.
Okay. Yaz, over to you.
Yeah, so crafting personal narratives and really honoring life stories. So again, storytelling, this is really key. And how do you kind of craft those personalized stories? If you're a student of the Funeral Fix, or even the fact that you're here with us today, we know that all of you are really eager and wanting to create personalized stories. That's so important to our students and our audience. So how do you actually do that and really make those stories meaningful? And I think that focusing on key moments is really important. So obviously once you go out and you meet with your family and you've curated those questions, you'll start to get an idea of like, what are the significant milestones in this person's life and how can you weave those into the story of your ceremony and into the story of their life? You also want to incorporate personal details. That's obviously key to any story of someone's life and their legacy is who were they as a person, like the who, what's, why, the anecdotes, the family stories. Trying to get as many different viewpoints as possible is also a really beautiful way to kind of build a bit of structure around those personal details. Celebrating relationships is another really beautiful way to craft those personalized narratives. And that's who are the important people in their life and who were their friends, who were their loved ones, who were the people that built up, like that made up the fabric of that person's life. And how do you then acknowledge them in ceremony? I tend to like welcome everyone in the room, but maybe have, depending on the family dynamics, obviously, acknowledging some of the key relationships and the people who may be there in the moment as well. And capture the essence of who they were. I think that this is also really important to crafting personal narratives because it's like, who is this person at their core? Like we all have that outer projection of who we are and how the world perceives us, but what is it about us that make us special? And what is that essence that make us unique as well? And really being able to weave that into your ceremonies and into your storytelling, I think can elevate that the ceremony itself, because it feels so personal, and people who are there hopefully get that sense of, wow, this celebrant really understands my person, and they're now sharing that with us. And then again, it's about connection and creating emotional connections. So framing your story in a way that the audience feels included and connected to their person, and reflecting on memories and that legacy piece as well is a really wonderful way to do that. So capturing emotion. So techniques for evoking emotion. And really, this is a wonderful tool that we all use in our ceremonies, and it's the difference between showing and telling. So what is showing and telling when it comes to storytelling? Well, telling is just stating the facts or the feelings. So for example, she was kind and caring, Mary loved golf, whatever it is. But showing is about illustrating emotions or traits through vivid descriptions, actions, and specific examples. So when you take these two examples, the first one that I've already mentioned versus this one, which is showing, she would always make an extra meal for the neighbor who lived alone, even on her busiest days. So it's a huge difference when you think about how you're writing or structuring your ceremony, is using those personal anecdotes and those personal stories that you may have gotten from the family, and using those as a way to really talk about this person who's died's like personality traits or who she was. It's really about showing people, like, these are her actions, these are the things that she did, rather than just telling them, like using adjectives to explain how they were. It definitely requires us to work a little bit harder, both in the interview process and the writing process, but I definitely think the end result is worth it. So we're talking about why showing is more powerful, and obviously it engages the audience's imagination. So instead of just hearing those adjectives and the message, they can really visualize it. It brings that person's actions to life. They can see them. For example, there was a beautiful example again in the ceremony yesterday where his family had described Jack as like very generous and a very giving person. And one of the anecdotes that came up was that even after his mum he used to go and visit his mum every day in aged care. And even after she'd passed away, his car was always outside the aged care facility. And someone asked, like, why do I always see your car still there? And he said, Jack's response was, there are so many people in the aged care home who have no one come and visit them. I can't imagine that being someone. So I now go there and visit all these strangers who aren't even like a relation to him. But that was such a beautiful anecdote to really explain that sense of generosity and compassion and that deep love for people that he had. So that's the perfect example for something like this. So I want you guys to really think about that, even when it's in there, like when you're speaking to your family and getting those initial questions. How did anecdotes demonstrate who they were as a person?
So instead of saying describe the person, they say, oh, they're really kind and funny. Maybe actually going, okay, why specifically were they kind? And why were they funny? Or tell me about their humor. Or do you remember a great joke or something funny that they did?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
great.
can I link this in to weddings as well? Because that's my wheelhouse a little bit. Is I always ask the couple, be really specific about places, events, people, how you're feeling, everything. What you might not find interesting, I find interesting, which means everyone finds, like, guess I'm just a guest. People will find it interesting. So my couple on Saturday met whilst working at the BP service station in Emu Plains. It was so specific. And all I said was that group of words, and everyone laughed. All I said was a fact. And then the person who owned the BP servo ended up actually being a part of, he was there, and he piped up and went, I just want to say they actually worked at the cafe at the servo, not at the servo. And that was a fun little moment. Oh, sorry, thank you for the correction. If anyone else would like to fact check me during the ceremony, please feel free.
That's amazing.
But yeah, specificity, I think, is just so important to storytelling. Like, the facts of people, and someone came up to me afterwards and was like, how do you get all those specifics? It's like, I just ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just tell me specifically.
And I think that's so important for us to really consider that, because obviously those questions come quite early on in the piece. But if you know that the intention is to use these anecdotes in this way so that we can show rather than tell, it makes the process a lot better. Because as we've said, it also creates a much deeper connection with the audience. People really feel like, yes, that's my person. That is who they were. And enhances relatability, like real life examples, specific details. They really help the audience kind of picture their person, and again just makes the ceremony so memorable.
All right. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We skipped a few. Okay, incorporating a range of emotions, humor, sadness, joy, etc. So a great ceremony similar to the life that we might be honoring should, in our opinion, mirror the complexities of their life. There's often so many different aspects, different chapters. So incorporating moments of some of the things we've chatted about, humor, grief, acknowledging sadness or joy, really help to create a dynamic and rich experience emotionally for our audience. It helps balance the emotional experience. It can use humor as a connector, sadness as a reflection, joy as celebration of life, building emotional contrast, and resonating with diverse attendees. I'm skipping through this because we've sort of chatted about humor as a connector, and some of the other things here. But sadness as well is one thing that I just wanted to touch on in a bit more detail. So acknowledging that that somebody's died, acknowledging that there is potential grief and sorrow there is sometimes an expectation that guests might have. And sometimes it's kind of what they feel they might need to hear in order to validate their emotions so that they can mourn with each other, perhaps even begin their healing journey as well. So if appropriate, it's definitely something to consider using in your ceremony, particularly like including moments of reflection where attendees can honor their sadness, perhaps like sharing a memory or quoting something, or even writing down a note, perhaps, or something like that. But yeah, even quoting something heartfelt from the person, like for example, Margaret often said, "When I go, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. Yet today, it's hard not to miss her deeply," for example. And I'm going to jump down to resonating with diverse attendees as well. So people process grief in different ways. We did an incredible webinar with Joe Link, who wrote Is This Normal? And recently published that book. I encourage you to check out that webinar if you want some more information on grief. That's on our YouTube Funeral Fix channel, because people process grief in such different ways. It's really important to acknowledge that. Like some may prefer to laugh and that's kind of their way to do it. Some might reflect more with tears or memories or thoughts or even just being silent. But it's kind of, I guess, important in that regard to consider that so that you can try and incorporate as many of those different elements into your ceremony as well, so that you can kind of resonate with a diverse group of attendees in the way that they're processing the information.
And just really quickly on that, Ollie,
Yeah.
I remember Annie Molinar said once that early on she sort of realized that point where people process things differently, and she would finish ceremonies sometimes, whether it be weddings or funerals, and feel like she got nothing from her guests. Like they weren't laughing in the key moments, or like she wasn't getting much. But then those are the ones when she was walking away or packing up that the most amount of people would come to her and say that was beautiful, or that was funny, and that was great. That was the best ceremony, funeral, wedding I've ever seen. And that's when I think she sort of realized it's like, oh, sometimes those quieter, more subdued or groups are just processing things differently in their heads. It doesn't mean they're not loving it. If you're still feeling good up there and you still feel like you're doing a really great job, they just might be processing in a different way, and that's their way of showing it. And that's something I always think about as well. It's like, oh, I'm not getting much here. I'm not feeling that energy that I think I should. And then you walk away and people are going, that was so great. It's like, oh, okay, maybe it was what I was thinking.
Before we launch into some Q&A with everybody, we do have one more topic to cover, and that's voice and delivery. Now, this essentially needs a lot more time, which is why we've got the Storyteller Summit in February next year. This is essentially the crux of why we are creating the Storyteller Summit and hosting that next year. So Adam, going to get you to talk a little bit about tone, pace, timing,
Great.
vocals, all that wonderful stuff. So
Yeah.
how does the tone set the mood?
And I won't go through it. I know that we have to move on to a Q&A as well. So a lot of this I think we're gonna have to keep for the summit.
Yeah.
Tone sets the mood, of course, matches the ceremony mood. Your tone should reflect the emotions of the moment, of what's happening in the moment. And shifting to reflect those moments is really important as well. So feeling what's happening, the energy in the room or wherever you are, and shifting your tone to that is really important as well. So sometimes I've felt in ceremonies where people are really resonating more with the light-hearted, funnier stuff, or they're not resonating with them. I can feel that they really want those emotional deep hits as well. So it's like, okay, as I'm going, I might be cutting stuff on the fly or leaning more in or slowing down at those real emotional moments because I know that people are really resonating with them. So being able to think on the fly and set that tone as well, I think is really important. So shift with them as well. So, and I think that tone like plays it's a real critical role in honoring someone as well. So having that balance of somber reflection or of that uplifting tone, like Ollie said, to that's who they are. So reflect that in tone.
And
Pace
you've
as well.
talked
I've sort of gone through. Yes.
yeah, I was going to say you've talked about pace and
Yeah.
timing a little bit.
Good.
Would you like to elaborate, or are you good?
Yeah, let's move on. I think the next slide I like this one I really want to talk about keeping it natural, and I think this is one of my favorite points in this whole section is a conversational delivery. I think that the key to a great storyteller is the fact that you feel like they are speaking directly to you instead of at you, or with you instead of at you. So it's a person talking to a person rather than a presenter behind a wall that doesn't exist talking at you. And I think that that's something really, really important. So the way I present is how I'm speaking right now. It's just how I would speak to people. And I think people really resonate with that as well. And it's like, oh, you have quite a calm, relaxed tone. You're looking at me in the eyes. That's makes me feel calm, relaxed, and want to go along on that ride with you. So I think that's one of my favorite points is keeping it natural.
I will say to that as well, and this goes back to your point before around like that first 7 seconds is that first 7 seconds is where people, I think it is less than that, is where they make that assessment of you. So in that moment, make eye contact. We know our name, we know where we are. Hopefully, you know the name of the person whose life you're honoring. So really use that as an opportunity to be really conversational and welcoming and warm and build that instant connection with the audience.
Yeah, after the Storyteller Summit, I don't expect any of the attendees to be reading what their names are or why they're there at that ceremony.
Yes.
In fact, all of you right now, I'd encourage you, don't look at this, don't look at your script to introduce what your name is or to say good morning or good afternoon. You know how to do that. Just look at your audience and speak to them. That's what they need.
And as I've gone along, I've now told myself, I have an iPad that I'll read off. It's like, put that away as much as you can. Don't look at it as much as you can. Of course, for the story elements, the specifics about these people, you're gonna have to look at your notes. You can't.
You know what I'll say? Your notes are your seatbelt, not your steering wheel.
Yeah,
How's that?
I love that. That was beautiful. Did you just come up with that then, Ollie? Amazing.
So what about the importance of presence and delivery, Adam?
It's everything. Confidence builds trust. You are in the confident hands of a great celebrant. They're going to take you along on this journey. When something unexpected happens, they're going to know what to do. Their calm demeanor is going to take you through it. Their body language is open, it's inviting connections, it's emphasizing those key emotional points. A simple gesture can speak volumes, can stepping forward to emphasize a point, or I probably over gesticulate. But body language is so important to being open. Open hands is one as well that we'll go through as well. All of these can be spent, we could talk hours on every one of these points.
Well, we are
vocal
going to talk
delivery.
hours on these points, and really we're going to be getting people to demonstrate some of these and actually giving in-person feedback as well to really help. And it's a two day event as well, so it's not just one day and then you're gone. It'll be like this is one day you have time to sleep and come back and get back into it, and then you really hone your skills again, which is different to what we've done in the past, which has only ever been one-day events. So really thrilled to see how people are going to really transition between the one day over to the 2 days.
I love the idea of giving real live feedback as well, of being like, okay, we could try using the following techniques of
Mm.
using more open
Mm.
hand gestures or eye contact or emphasis in tone, and seeing how that impacts that presentation in real time, I think is really, really cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
So presence connecting, being fully present in the moment, helping you respond naturally to any moment, warm, soft tones, creating closeness in moments, or louder celebratory tones for the moments that might call for it as well, and authenticity engaging. Yeah, just being your true self,
Mm.
especially at funerals. People can sense when you're being genuine and when you're trying to pretend to be someone else. So just being yourself, being that person, and guiding people through the journey.
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about the things that we're going to be delving into a lot more on our in our 2 day in-person workshop next year, the Storytellers Summit. Yes.
Yes. So Ollie and I think from our other in-person events, we've had so many people come to us, our students, other people saying, we want an opportunity to come together in a really safe space, in a room, and learn new tools and techniques that we may not have had in our toolkit before to elevate our ceremonies. We want to be able to present more, practice more, learn about voice and delivery and improv. So that is why we've created the Storyteller Summit. Whether you are an experienced celebrant or brand new in the industry, we've created this event to meet you where you're at, but definitely take your skills to the next level and learn ways to enhance your toolkit as a celebrant and as a ceremonialist and as a storyteller so that we can all learn from each other and engage in new and exciting ways. So
Yeah.
that is why we created the Storytellers Summit.
We've had some questions as well. If you are not a current Funeral Fix member or student, you are still welcome to join us for this. If you are completing the course or you have completed the course, you are also welcome to join for this. This information is somewhat completely different from what the Funeral Fix online and the Funeral Fix in person is. So although they complement each other, you can do one without the other, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do have a little video, but I think we don't have time, so we might pop that in the email with everything else that we're going to be sending through shortly with the link. But of course, it wouldn't be a Funeral Fix webinar without some sort of special offer at the end, really. So if you'd like to learn more and join us for the Storyteller Summit, we have, I think, about 20 to 25 roughly spots available at the moment. We're trying to keep them quite small so that we can be as interactive as possible. And we really are looking for celebrants that want to become top tier celebrants, want to become the best in the country, best in the world, that know how to truly engage with their audience, truly connect with their families and all of the people in ceremonies that they might be presenting to. This 2 day workshop, it's not going to be an easy 2 days. We don't want it to be easy. We want it to be something that really takes you out of your comfort zone. Bring your comfy pants, bring your theatre blacks, because we really want to get down and dirty, so to speak, and really practice as much as we can, engage, give you opportunities to try some new things, some improv techniques with Adam, and develop those skills to become, like Yaz said, great to extraordinary.
Yeah, we're so excited. And it's going to be heaps of fun. The
So
three of
you
us.
can choose, sorry, yeah, you can choose the workshop, or you can obviously join the workshop and the online course, the Funeral Fix. So if you go to that website there, we'll send this link as well in the email. Click on enroll now, and a checkout page, use webinar24 as the code to receive 10% off your purchase. However, this offer is only available for the next 48 hours starting 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time today. It's been incredible. We have rushed through, we've delved into so much content. We did warn you it was going to be content heavy, but perhaps now's a good opportunity over the next 5 minutes or so. If anyone has any comments, any contributions, or any questions that either myself, Yaz, or Adam might be able to answer, now's a great opportunity.
We've got some lovely comments in the chat as well. Maybe this will be one of those times where people are too shy.
You are all on mute, so you can raise your physical hand or your Zoom digital hand if you like. But I guess, hi Pete, how you going?
Hi guys, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, fantastic information. Really do appreciate it. The one thing I'm really worried about is the fact that you're telling the stories and so forth, but I usually get a copy of the eulogy or whoever's going to deliver it, so I don't double up on what they're going to say. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think one of the comments we mentioned about delving a little bit deeper. So perhaps if there are certain stories in there or comments or descriptions about the people, you can actually go back and just say, hey, I'd love to explore more of this because this theme or this description of this character or person keeps coming up. Can you give me a little bit more information about that? Or have you got a story or a memory that I might be able to include in that? I think that could be a really great way to start.
Yeah. And I think it's also there is like a differentiator between the eulogy and the reflections, and then our job as celebrants, especially in like those opening, maybe words of comfort or the closing, and kind of setting the scene so that it looks like we've made an effort to get to know who this person is, and we understand that this is who this person is, and these are some of the anecdotes around that or the personality traits or the themes that keep coming up. So we can still use that in the way that we write our ceremony and the words that we say, which doesn't double up on what the family are saying, and some of it, there might be similar themes, which is great. But it's not like we're verbatim kind of saying the same thing as the eulogy or the same thing as some of the other tributes. Does that answer your question, Pete?
Yeah, what I've been listening to is I see, excuse me, that I'm actually doing the spam. I see that I'm doing the right things, but now it's the fine tuning of it all, which I think is going to be a big help from what I've just gathered listening to you guys today for the past hour. It's fantastic. I appreciate it.
No, of course. Well, the Storyteller Summit, Pete, obviously there's going to be a lot of fine tuning happening there.
All about the fine tuning.
I've got something I'd like to say. Hi, how are you? Thank you very much. That was a great session. But anyway, I won't waste time on that. I sometimes I find it funny to or want to be if you feel a little bit disingenuous because you didn't know the person personally, and you know all these anecdotes secondhand, and you want to be real with it. You want to get a feel for the person, but you don't know the person. And whether that you could be stepping on landmines with the audience who actually do know that person. And, I liked how you said, fact check me if you need. But yeah, just the disconnect between those two things, because you want to look real, but you don't want to look pretentious, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I might answer this, that's all right. And you obviously can add if you want anything, Yaz and Adam, but I always make an effort to acknowledge I wasn't there, unfortunately, during this person's life. I've only been given information about them. But even as the ceremony goes, often you'll hear things and you can even say, he sounded or she sounded, they sounded like an incredible person. I wish I had have gotten to know them because that story kind of sounds like this, and you can pull different elements out and really connect who you are to that person and why you're there. And I don't think anyone expects you to know them personally, because I don't think I've ever done a ceremony for anybody that I knew personally. I guess that's sort of lucky in a lot of ways, but I haven't been put in that situation. So I don't think there's ever an expectation that we should, but I think it can come across disingenuous if we don't acknowledge that we didn't actually have a personal connection to that person. And acknowledging what our role is. I've had the honor and the privilege of working with the family so closely to get to know this person as best as I could, to be able to deliver a ceremony that truly honors their life. Though I wasn't there for those moments, I am so honored to be able to be here to help guide you perhaps through this ceremony and these moments. So really providing, I guess, context around who you are, what your role is, and why you're there.
I approach exactly the same, Ol. Like I acknowledge and I say, as Ollie said, I've worked with his family over the last few weeks or however long it is to learn as much about him. And I think that definitely clarifies it.
Yeah, because otherwise the people could go, well, you weren't there for that, so what the hell do you know? But I think you really protect yourself by saying, I wasn't there. Full disclosure, I didn't have anything to do with that. I've only been told the information. And you could even say, you know what, your memory of this occasion might be very different, or your relationship might feel very different, and that's okay. That's your memory, that's your relationship, and you can validate that as well.
Or even at certain points, saying, I was told by so-and-so this, and it's like bringing up, and da-da-da told me how they feel this. So it's like bringing up the fact and what they said. So, and this is their quote or whatever. I think it's cool.
Point.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that it is 1 o'clock, so we usually run pretty tight with timings, but if anybody would like to stay on for a couple of minutes, you're more than welcome to ask us any more questions or contribute or anything like that. It's been wonderful to hear some of those questions and share stories with you.
Just answering one from the comments as well. I think somebody asked, someone missed it because of daylight savings time and asked if it was being recorded so they can watch again. It is, right? Yes?
Yes, it is.
It is recorded and everyone will receive the recording. So
Linda had a question. Did you want to ask it or do you want me to read it, Linda?
You can read it if it makes sense to you.
In a wedding scenario, if you have no room to be up the front, though you are to the side, of course, how do you tell your story without everyone turning their heads? This happened to me recently. I was a couple of rows back and it was awkward, or at least I thought it was. As the celebrant, you weren't positioned up the front?
No, there was just no room by the time the wedding party were all in place. So I had to, I was on the side about 2 seat rows back. And it just, like, I've kind of done that before, but in this instance, everyone kind of turned around to me and I had nowhere else to go. And I just wondered if, I don't know, if there's anything I should have said, like, don't need to watch me, just look, just listen, or, you know, don't take your eyes off the beautiful couple, or just let them look at me. I don't know.
Can I jump in on that, Ollie? I've had this as well. I think especially, I'm a very off to the side person. I think that's great. I think a lot of the time for a wedding, the couple are kind of happy, at least for the beginning of the ceremony, to kind of have the pressure off to them as well, to the side. People are still watching the couple. But also just logistics speaking, sometimes if it's really tight and you have a wedding party and there's actually no room for you, sometimes I just sort of position myself in front of the wedding party. So I'll be standing in, you know, on one side, kind of in front of them. And I think that's fine as well. You're not like in the line, you're kind of just out. Or sometimes as well, because I'm a bit anal about it, when the wedding party come down or when they're sort of looking where to stand, I'll purposely leave a space in between the last person and the couple so I can sort of insert myself right beside the couple as well. So I'll purposely put myself there. But I also don't think it's that bad being a little bit off to the side, or even like you said, acknowledging it and being like, hi, I'm over here. How are you guys going over there? Oh, you're quite far away or whatever. Just acknowledging that as well could be a funny moment potentially.
Yeah, I think yeah, if you make it awkward, Linda, it's probably going to feel awkward. But if you don't make it awkward, they probably won't feel that it's awkward. They might just think that that's an intentional choice you've made.
It was an intentional choice because there was 2 wagon wheels each side of the arbor, and there was no way those wedding party people were allowed to get in front of those wagon wheels. So it took up so much room. I was like, okay.
I pictured a big chocolate marshmallow wheel when you said wagon wheel.
No, me too.
Not that sort.
Yeah, really.
Thank you. Yeah.
There is one more question
Yes.
here. How do you go with knowing, this is from Kimberly, how do you go with knowing what tone to tell the story in? Just ask the family at the meeting, knowing that usually they have differing opinions, or do you wing it on the day and how you deliver it? For me, I would say, I feel like the story itself will, once you read the story, you'll know if it's more lighthearted or heavier. So that will definitely help you decide on what tone is more appropriate. And I guess it's also where you put that tone. So like where that story is placed, and is it in like a heavier moment or a lighter moment that will really allow you to dictate the tone itself? What do you think, Ollie and Adam?
Yeah, I was actually going to say intuition is something that we haven't talked about today, but is something that I think is an incredible skill that we can use, or a tool even, as celebrants when it comes to understanding a crowd. So often we are presenting in front of a group of people, we have no idea who they are. We have no idea how they might be feeling, no idea how they're going to respond to what we might have prepared. And if we don't use that intuition, we can be really not hitting the mark or really be off mark. And I think it's a mixture of understanding the tone and the atmosphere of how the family envisaged the ceremony. But also, I take that probably about 50%, and then the rest is kind of gauging on how the audience are reacting. If they're a lot heavier feeling or a lot lighter than perhaps the family are expecting, the best thing that I can do is kind of work with that level of tone. So I'm guided very much by family, but also in the moment, just using intuition.
Yeah, because we don't know what we're walking into, really. Like, we can't depict that early before the ceremony. It just, we have to kind of meet the people where they're at. And I think we're really authentic in how we present as well. Like, I am probably like more of a, like, a lot of my ceremonies are very heartfelt, and I try and really make that connection quite early. So just being authentic to how we present individually and what we can bring to the
Really
audience.
true. And I think intuition as well comes out in improvisation. So as you get more confident with improvisation, you kind of know, oh, I have the confidence here to make an offer, essentially. And then you can sort of see how that might go. And that's kind of one of your techniques that you might be able to employ to gauge how your audience are responding. But we might go over that at the Storyteller Summit, perhaps.
The offer is a huge part of the Storyteller Summit improv section. The offer.
Yes. I'm so
Love
excited.
Yes.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be.
I've done my improv
Yeah, you know,
many years ago.
What storyteller? I haven't heard about any storytelling thing.
Oh,
What's going
Pete, you'll get an email, that's for sure.
Hey, I'm an ex-salesperson, so I know what you're trying to do. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're pretty passionate about seeing the Celebrant game being really lifted in this country, and we're with our 150 odd students that have graduated from our online course, as well as those that have attended our in-person events. We received amazing feedback, so we know that we're doing something right, and we're so happy by the people that have come through us to really amplify their services.
Can I tell you a quick story? Take 1 minute.
Yeah, if it's got a beginning, middle, and an end.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes on and on and on. But when I became a celebrant because of COVID, I was doing a wedding on the Saturday, but on the Friday, the day before, I hadn't had my approval from the Attorney General. Came through at 4 o'clock.
Oh,
The
wow.
next day, I did my first wedding, ex-girlfriend of mine. 2 weeks later, I did my first funeral, which was a guy I'd worked with. And there was over 1,000 people there, and it was televised.
Whoa.
And the funny thing was, everyone wanted to get up and talk. And I knew then there was going to be an issue. So what I did, I said, no one is getting up to talk apart from the eulogy. Took all the snippets from their social pages, and that's what I used. And it worked really, really well. And the other thing is, I always ask the family, what sort of funeral do you want? What sort of service would you like? Do you want it doom and gloom, or do you want it to be lighthearted? And that usually, and when you talk to the family, you can usually tell one or two people who don't really fit in with the rest of the family. So I adjust it accordingly as I go along. What do you think?
So good. Thank you for sharing, Pete.
No worries.
I'm not even going to talk about the legalities of taking a booking before you're registered. I'm sure a lot of other celebrants heard that, but that's
But I had cover. I had the celebrant.
okay, good. All right.
If I needed to.
Luckily,
Excellent.
I'm not a marriage celebrant, so I don't know the legality.
Is there anybody else?
I've gone 8 minutes over time.
Yeah, we
so
have.
I think we should probably wrap it up, as much as we love speaking to you all and let you get back to your day. But thank you all for joining us and for being here and for investing in yourselves. And hopefully we will see you in February.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye.